Hannah's fingers tightened on the steering wheel as her old sedan sputtered along the quiet road. She didn't have time for distractions. Not when rent was due tomorrow, and she barely had enough gas to make it home. But then, she spotted him. A man stood by the side of the road, his coat soaked through, holding up a sign that read, "Help needed. Urgent." Her stomach churned. This wasn't her problem. She should keep driving. Yet something about the defeated slump of his shoulders pulled at her conscience. Against every rational thought, she slowed to a stop and rolled down her window. "Are you okay?" she called, rain drumming on her car roof. The man stepped closer, his graying hair plastered to his forehead. His voice trembled. "My car broke down miles back, and I need to get to an important meeting. Please, if you could just drop me off at the nearest gas station." Hannah hesitated. This could be dangerous, but he looked more desperate than threatening, and she'd been in his shoes too many times to ignore him. She gestured to the passenger seat. "Get in." The man climbed into the passenger seat, dripping water onto the torn fabric. Hannah cringed at the state of her car. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. She glanced at him briefly as she pulled back onto the road. His suit, though soaked, was high quality, and his polished shoes didn't belong to someone struggling like her. "Thank you," he said, his voice strained. "I know stopping for a stranger isn't easy." Hannah offered a tight smile. "I've been where you are. Sometimes you just need a little help." He nodded, but his expression remained tense. "I owe you one." They drove in silence for a few minutes, the rhythmic sound of the windshield wipers filling the car. Hannah's curiosity got the better of her. "So, what's this meeting? Must be important if you're out here in the middle of nowhere." "It's not just important," he said, staring out the window. "It's everything." His cryptic answer made her raise an eyebrow, but she didn't press. She had enough problems of her own. The man shifted uncomfortably, and she noticed him clutching a leather briefcase as if it were a lifeline. Suddenly, he spoke again, his tone more urgent. "Can you take a different route? I think someone might be following me." Hannah's grip on the wheel tightened. "What do you mean, following you?" The man's eyes darted to the side mirror. "I don't have time to explain, but please, just turn left up ahead. Trust me." Hannah hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to kick him out of the car, but the panic in his voice was undeniable. Against her better judgment, she turned down the deserted side road, the headlights cutting through the rain-soaked darkness. "Thank you," he said quietly, his relief palpable. "Look, I'm not trying to get involved in anything dangerous," she said, her voice firm. "If there's trouble, you need to tell me now." The man sighed heavily. "My name is Robert Sinclair. Let's just say I run a large corporation. There's a lot of money at stake, and some people aren't happy about my decisions. That's all I can say." Hannah's stomach twisted. "You're some kind of CEO." He gave a faint smile. "Something like that." Before she could process his words, bright headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Her heart jumped as the car behind them sped closer, its engine roaring. "Faster," Robert urged. "Please." Hannah didn't need to be told twice. She slammed her foot on the gas, her old car protesting with a groan. The vehicle behind them didn't back off, staying dangerously close. "What's going on?" she yelled, panic creeping into her voice. "Just keep driving," Robert shouted. The pursuing car suddenly swerved, attempting to cut them off. Hannah's heart raced as she gripped the wheel, swerving onto a side road to avoid a collision. The rain made the road slick, and the tires skidded briefly before gaining traction. "Take this," Robert said, thrusting the briefcase toward her. "If anything happens to me, make sure this gets to my lawyer. His name is on the card inside." "What?" "No," she snapped. "I'm not getting dragged into whatever this is." "You already are," he said, his voice grim. "Please just promise me." Before Hannah could argue, the pursuing car sped ahead, blocking the road. She slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. The rain pounded against the windshield as two figures emerged from the other vehicle, their silhouettes ominous in the downpour. "What do they want from you?" she whispered, fear clawing at her chest. "They're after what's in the briefcase," Robert said, his voice low. "But they can't have it, no matter what." Hannah's breath quickened as the two figures approached, their movements deliberate and unhurried. She glanced at Robert, who seemed eerily calm despite the situation. "They'll destroy everything if they get it," he muttered, gripping her arm. Trust me, Hannah. You can't let them. How do you know my name? She hissed, her panic rising. Your ID was on your dashboard, he said quickly. I swear. I mean you no harm. Just keep it safe no matter what. The figures were close now, their faces obscured by the shadows and rain. One of them rapped on her window with the butt of a flashlight. Step out of the car, the man said, his voice sharp. We just need to talk. Hannah's fingers trembled on the wheel. What do I do? She whispered to Robert. Don't open the door, he replied, his tone firm but quiet. They'll take the briefcase, and you might not make it out. What do you expect me to do? Drive through them? Robert didn't answer. Instead, he leaned forward and locked eyes with her. Do you trust me? No, she blurted, her voice shaking. I don't even know you. Fair, he said, a flicker of a smile crossing his face despite the circumstances. But if you don't trust me, trust yourself. Get us out of here. Before she could respond, the man outside slammed his fist against the glass. Last warning, open the door, or we'll do it for you. Adrenaline surged through Hannah. She yanked the gear shift into reverse and slammed on the gas. The car jerked backward, tires spinning on the wet pavement. The man outside stumbled, narrowly avoiding the back bumper, but the other figure wasn't deterred. He sprinted toward them as she swerved the car around and sped down the road. Keep going, Robert shouted. Don't stop. The pursuers scrambled back into their SUV, its headlights flaring as it roared to life and gave chase. Hannah's old sedan rattled with every bump and turn, but she pushed it as fast as it would go. I can't outrun them, she yelled, her voice tight with fear. You don't have to, Robert said. Just get us to the city. They won't risk making a scene there. Hannah's heart thundered as she veered onto the highway, the SUV gaining ground. Her car shook violently, and she prayed it wouldn't give out now. Why me? She snapped, her frustration bubbling over. Why did I have to be the one to pick you up? Because you're a good person, Robert said simply. And I'm out of options. That doesn't exactly make me feel better, she shot back. The SUV rammed into the rear of her car, jolting them both forward. Hannah screamed, gripping the wheel as the car swerved. Robert reached over to steady her. Hold on, he said. Take the next exit now. Hannah yanked the wheel, barely making the turn onto the ramp. The SUV followed, its tires squealing on the slick asphalt. Ahead, the city lights flickered like a beacon of hope through the rain. Almost there, Robert said, his voice a mixture of urgency and relief. They won't follow us into a crowded area. Hannah wasn't convinced, but she didn't have a better plan. The SUV closed the gap again, its engine roaring like a predator hunting its prey. She tightened her grip, every muscle in her body tense, as she navigated the rain-soaked streets. Finally, they reached a bustling intersection. The SUV abruptly slowed, its headlights dimming before it turned down a side street and disappeared. Hannah pulled over, her hands shaking so badly she could barely put the car in park. She turned to Robert, her chest heaving. What just happened? Who were those people? Robert exhaled, his expression weary but grateful. People who think money is everything. But what's in this briefcase? It's worth more than any fortune they could imagine. What's in it? She demanded. He hesitated, then opened the case slightly, just enough for her to see a stack of documents and a small USB drive. This is evidence, proof of corruption that could bring down some of the most powerful people in the country. Hannah's jaw dropped. You're telling me I just risked my life for papers? For justice, he corrected. And for the truth. I'm sorry I dragged you into this, but you're the only one I could trust. She leaned back, her head spinning. This wasn't what she'd signed up for. All she wanted was to help someone in need, not to become a target in some high-stakes conspiracy. Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. If you get into trouble, call this number. It's my lawyer. He'll know what to do. You're just leaving me with this? She asked, her voice rising. For now, he said. But trust me, Hannah, this might be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And with that, he slipped out of the car and disappeared into the rainy night, leaving her with the briefcase, a card, and more questions than she knew how to handle. Hannah sat in her car, heart pounding, staring at the briefcase Robert had left behind. Rain drummed against the roof as the weight of her situation hit her like a tidal wave. She had been scraping by, living paycheck to paycheck, and now she was somehow caught in a web of corruption and danger. Her hands trembled as she picked up the card Robert had given her. It read, Daniel Cross, attorney at law. Confidential matters only. A phone number was listed beneath. She had no idea if she could trust him, but what other choice did she have? She dialed the number with shaking fingers. It rang twice before a deep, calm voice answered. This is Daniel Cross. Mr. Cross, my name is Hannah. Robert Sinclair gave me your number. He said you'd know what to do. There was a long pause. You're with the briefcase? Yes, she replied, glancing nervously out the window. He left it with me and... Are you safe? Cross interrupted, his tone sharp. For now, but someone was chasing us. Listen carefully, he said, his voice low but commanding. Do not open the briefcase. Bring it to my office immediately. I'll send you the address. Be cautious. If they followed you, they'll try again. Moments later, her phone buzzed with a text containing the address. It was downtown in the heart of the city. Taking a deep breath, she started the car and pulled back onto the road. The drive to Cross's office was tense, every set of headlights in her rearview mirror making her heart race. When she finally arrived at the high-rise building, she parked and clutched the briefcase tightly as she hurried inside. The receptionist seemed to recognize the urgency and waved her through without question. She took the elevator to the 15th floor, where Cross's office was located. The man himself, tall and imposing with a neatly trimmed beard, opened the door before she even knocked. Hannah, come in, he said, ushering her inside. The office was sleek and modern, but Hannah barely noticed as she placed the briefcase on his desk. Robert said this was evidence. What's in it? She asked. Cross opened the case and scanned the documents and USB drive inside. His expression darkened. This is everything we need to expose a network of corruption that's been untouchable for years. Corporate fraud, bribery, even human rights violations. It's all here. Hannah's stomach turned. Why would Robert trust me with this? Because he saw something in you, Cross said simply. And because people like you, ordinary citizens, are often overlooked by those who think they're untouchable. Before Hannah could respond, the office phone rang. Cross answered it, his expression growing graver by the second. They know you're here, he said after hanging up. We need to move. What do you mean move? She exclaimed, panic rising. They'll come for this evidence. And for you. But don't worry, he said, grabbing the briefcase and pulling out another small case. We have a backup plan. He handed her a smaller, identical briefcase. This is a decoy. You're going to help us misdirect them while we get the real evidence into the right hands? What? No, I didn't sign up for this. You signed up the moment you helped Robert, Cross said, his voice firm but not unkind. If you don't help, everything he's worked for, everything you risked, will be for nothing. Hannah's role was simple but terrifying. She left the office with the decoy case, her job to act as a distraction while Cross and his team delivered the real evidence to the authorities. She drove aimlessly, her heart pounding every time she spotted a car behind her. Sure enough, within 20 minutes, she realized she was being followed again. Stay calm, Cross had instructed her. Lead them as far away as you can. Every instinct told her to panic, but she held her nerve, weaving through the city until she reached the outskirts. The pursuing car stayed close, but she kept going, her mind racing for a plan. Finally, she spotted a crowded gas station. Thinking quickly, she pulled in and parked near the pumps where dozens of people milled about. She grabbed the decoy briefcase and got out, blending into the crowd. The pursuers hesitated, clearly unwilling to make a scene. Hannah used the distraction to slip into the gas station's convenience store and out the back door, leaving the decoy case in the alley. Hours later, back in the safety of her tiny apartment, her phone rang. It was Cross. It's done, he said. The evidence is secure, and the authorities are already moving on the perpetrators. You did more than you realize, Hannah. Relief flooded her. But before she could respond, he added, and Robert didn't forget you. What do you mean? She asked, confused. I think you should check your bank account, Cross said, his voice warm with approval. Hannah hung up and opened her banking app. Her jaw dropped. The balance showed a figure she couldn't have dreamed of, a seven-figure deposit labeled for a brighter future. R. Sinclair. Tears streamed down her face as the realization sank in. By helping a stranger, she hadn't just saved herself. She'd uncovered strength and courage she never knew she had. And now, she had the chance to rebuild her life and make a difference in ways she'd